This video is to provide some helpful hints for the TEKS Practice 8.3a worksheet. And this video focuses on questions 1, 3, and 4 because we can solve them in a very similar way. On number 1, we have triangle ABC and triangle DEF, and it tells us the DEF is a dilation. Now, anytime that shapes are dilations, it means that they are similar, and when they are similar, we can set up proportions. So if I had a similar example to number 1, if I had triangle ABC, and let's give it some measurements here, let's say this is 6 and 10, and then I had triangle DEF, a dilation of it, and we'll give this side 4. If I wanted to find the distance from E to F, which is just what number 1 is asking you to find, let's go ahead and label that with an X. It's our unknown. Well, we can just set up a proportion here. We know that 6 on the first triangle corresponds with the 4. They're both that vertical line. And then come back to that original shape, and we have the 10 matches with that X, the missing side. Once we have a proportion, we can just cross multiply and divide to solve for it. 10 times 4 is 40. 40 divided by 6, and you can use a calculator, is 6.6, repeating. So you're going to want to approach number 1 in a similar way. Another question on this 8.3a worksheet, where setting up a proportion would be helpful, is if we look at number 3. Now on number 3, we actually have overlapping shapes, and that's what's a little bit different here. So we have a large trapezoid with a much smaller one inside of it. Now I'm going to go off my own example with slightly different numbers. I'm going to label a 3 and a 3, 10, 9, 4, and 4. Number 3 is asking how much floor tape in feet Mr. Bodden would need. Well, how much floor tape is every single one of those edges put together, so the problem is we're missing 2 of these side lengths. We need to know exactly how long those are to be able to find the total. So I think the easiest thing to do is when you have overlapping shapes, it helps to draw them separately. So if we redraw this smaller one, labeling the length and width straight from there, 3 and 4, and then redraw the larger one, we have to be very careful when we're labeling the measurements on the larger, because from the bottom to the top here we have 3 and 3, so the length is actually 6. And along the bottom here we have 4 next to 4, so that's actually 8. So just like in number 1, how you set up a proportion, getting a measurement from the left, then from the right, a missing one from the left with a corresponding on the right, set up your proportions, find this missing side, set up another proportion, find this missing side, and then you actually have every single number that you need in here to be able to add up the total length. Number 4 is another problem where a proportion would also be very helpful. Anytime you have a situation where it's a shadow type question, you can draw a picture and set up a proportion. So in number 4, if you have a lamp post, you could draw that as a vertical line. And we know that when we have a shadow, we actually see that along the ground. So the shadow would be a horizontal line there. Well, what we've done is we've created a nice right triangle there. And if we have a man standing nearby, he would probably be in about there. And he has a shadow as well. Now, shadow questions actually create similar triangles, so we can draw his triangle separately. We would have the man standing vertically. We would have his shadow along the ground. We've got similar triangles, so we can fill in the measurements from the question and set up a proportion to find the missing side as well. So in questions 1, 3, and 4 on this 8.3a worksheet, you want to focus on setting up proportions to find those missing side lengths.